Mary came from a referral. She needed help. She knew it would be awkward, shameful, and terribly scandalous, but she wanted answers. She said, Aaron, I know this is going to sound really bad, but I'm truly conflicted and I don't know who to choose. Jason and I have been married for 15 years. We've had a good marriage. We really do. We have 4 beautiful children, wonderful children. They're the most fulfilling part of my life. And just so you know, I've already told Jason everything. Everything I'm telling you, he knows everything. He's pleaded with me to stay. He has pleaded with me to give up the other guy, but that's my problem. Jeremy is the other guy. He's a police officer, and he's not a family man. He and I have already talked, and he doesn't want any kids, and he doesn't want any in the future. So I started seeing Jeremy after I met him at the gym. He came to one of my Pilates classes a couple of times. He's really charismatic. He's really handsome. And he's really romantic. Jason is not romantic. Jason is very blah. But for a family, that's really good. For a family that wants stability, that's really good. For a family that wants loyalty and someone you can count on, that's really good. But it's just not exciting. It's not romantic. I've tried to ask him several times if he would try different things. I've tried to ask him several times if he would experiment. I've tried to ask him several times if he would do it a different way. He does sometimes, but then it just falls right back into the same old every time, and it's like nothing's changed. Jeremy is way different. He's not a family guy, but he is so romantic. He is really good in bed. And I know it sounds shallow, but I really value that. I really want the physical touch. I really want the romance. I really want the hot sex. And Jeremy does that. But I'm conflicted because I just don't know who to choose. I never want to give up my kids, but Jason doesn't have a hot passion. And Jeremy is really passionate. I would never see him as a family guy because he's really passionate in bed, but he's also fiery tempered. So not a family guy. And I really just don't know what the right answer is. So, then I came in and I said, Mary, I have to be upfront with you. Before we get into this, she said, okay, and she gave me permission. I said, I'm going to have to tell you that I have a very traditional belief on this. And I'm going to try to stay objective and not try to judge, but I'm sure that you're going to hear my traditional beliefs and views on this. I'm sure they're going to come out. She said, it's okay. My friend recommended you to me, and I'm Christian, and I know that you're a Christian, and I know that we have different beliefs, but I think what you're going to say, because you have Christian views, it's going to be okay. I said, yes, I am very much a Christian and very traditional in that regard. She said, it's okay. You came highly recommended from a friend. She said I should at least talk to you. I said, well, maybe so, but I have to tell you, it would be better if you and Jason would want to meet, or if you and Jeremy would want to meet. She said, well, Jeremy has asked me to meet a bunch of times, and he doesn't think that I should meet with you and him together because he thinks that would be a conflict of interest because I'm seeing you about seeing Jason. I said, okay, well, not everybody is best for everybody, and not everybody gets along with me, so he should definitely go and see who he's comfortable with. And if he's getting the best results with whoever, I don't believe it would, that's great. I don't believe it'll be a conflict of interest because I'm just here to give you advice for what you need. And try to leave my own opinions, beliefs, and thoughts out of it. I try to leave them out, but you will probably hear some of my traditional beliefs slip out. She said, well, I'll ask him, but for now, let's just keep it between the two of us. And I'll ask Jason if he wants to meet. I've tried to get him to go before, but he refuses. And I tell him that I think it would be good for us, but he just doesn't want to go. So, in comes Aaron again, and I say, okay, well, since you're at the heart of the matter, I think you're probably the most important one to talk to at this point. Mary agreed. She said, yeah, that's how I feel. It's my conflict, and I feel bad bringing either one of them into it. I said, okay, I think it actually all stems from your love language and your conation. She said, okay, love language I get, but conation, I don't know what that is. I said, okay, so let me tell you about your love language. It sounds like a physical touch is one of your main ones. She said, it is, and that is why I think I choose Jeremy for the deep, passionate sex. But I come from traditional values also. I used to be Mormon too, and that is why I think I hold on to family. But I don't think it's just because of my traditional values. I think it's because there's a part of me that does want that. And I really am fulfilled when I see my kids take their first step, or when I see a teenager have a crush, or when I see my son win his first track meet. So I don't want to give up on any of that. And I'm not going to give up on any of that. Does that make any sense? I said, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It sounds like what you want. Jason is not giving, and the only time he offers is when you might threaten him or he fears that you might leave. She said, that's exactly what happened. And he knows that I'm cheating. And I just feel so bad because he's hurting so much inside and he really wants me to stay and I just really don't know what to do anymore. He begs me to stay. And I wish he would just be the one to say I want a divorce so it wouldn't be so hard. It seems like he does try for a bit, but then it stops. It just goes back to what it used to be. And it is cute that he tries, but it's just not there. I said, for that very reason I would need to talk to him, but there are some things you can do as well. She said, really? Like what? I said, first is understanding your love language and your conation. Let's get into that. After that, it's understanding Jason, his love language, and his conation. Because if you figure those two out, you and him, I think Jeremy will actually fall away by the wayside, and he'll be disappointed. He'll be upset because the girl, he doesn't get the pretty girl. But he'll move on and he'll find somebody else. She said, you think so? I said, he won't have any problems. I think you're a very beautiful woman. But I think he got involved in the relationship for the wrong reason. And that's why it wouldn't be a long-term fulfilling thing like you want with children. She said, well, what do you mean by that? I said, well, I think he's after you for the sex. She said, well, he does want a long-term relationship. He just doesn't want the kids. I said, that does make sense. And some people want a long-term relationship without kids. But you, Mary, you want a long-term relationship with the kids. But you're just missing the passionate sex. Is that right? She said, yes. She said, yes. Well, I think. What do you think, Aaron? I said, I think this is something that can be remedied between you and Jason. She said, okay. So you were going to say something about my love language, conation, and then Jason's love language and conation. I said, yes. I don't know what it is. I don't know what his is. I know nothing about this guy other than he's a family guy, he's loyal, he's very predictable. But I don't know anything about his love language or conation. So his love language, do you know what it is? Mary responded, yes, it's quality time. I said, ouch. Ouch, ouch. That explains why you see him crying when you leave. And he knows where you're going. You're spending all that quality time with another man. She said, I know. I feel so guilty about it. And it just hurts me to see him cling to me almost like he begs me not to leave and he wants me to stay. And I feel so bad for him, but it's something I need to do. And he's not giving it. I said, I do actually agree. It's something you need. And I do agree that it's something he's not delivering. But I don't think it's something he couldn't deliver. I just think it's something he hasn't figured out how to match his love language with your conation and your love language and your conation and put them all together. So let's get to the conation part. She said, yes, you've mentioned that a couple times and I want to know what it is. I said, it's best used in this particular situation where you aren't sure how to deal with uncertainty, the unfamiliar, the troubleshooting, and figure out how to make things work out. She said, okay. And then I said, for you, it's obvious that you like to get your hands involved. You like to figure things out by being there. You like to figure out by just doing, and then whatever happens, happens, and you'll fix it later. She said, okay, that's pretty accurate. I said, Jason, what does he do, though? You said he's pretty loyal, pretty predictable. He's very stable. So I'm guessing he really likes to research and plan things out. I'm guessing he really likes to think things through before he does stuff. She said, yes, that's exactly what he does. I said, so that makes a lot of sense. It also makes sense why he's not very passionate or he doesn't keep you guessing or there isn't much novelty or newness in the sex. She said, okay, that kind of makes sense. I said, with Jeremy, you mentioned the passion. So he probably is very similar to you in that sense where he likes to do things, not just think things through, not just research it. He likes to be in the space. He likes to do things, and then if something goes wrong, he kind of fixes it later on. Maybe not 100%, maybe not as much as you, but more than Jason. She said, yeah, I would agree with that. She said, but you said something about a fix. Can you change Jason? I said, oh yeah. I know how much you want this passion in your relationship, and there are always ways to stimulate it. But you have to make sure that you understand how to do it from Jason's perspective, to get him how to do it to you. And then the more often you want it, he will probably want to initiate it because he will like it. And he will like the loyalty that he gets from you. He will like the quality time that he gets from you. She said, but Aaron, I've tried all that. And he does do it for a while. But I feel like I'm the only one doing something and he doesn't. I said, but you did say it gets better for a while, right? She said, yes. And then I said, that's the part where it gets tricky because you have to keep him guessing. She said, and how do I do that? I said, curiosity is a very strong emotion. When you show him your loyalty, when you show him your predictability, when you show him your stability and quality time, that is his cheat code, if you will. That is how he will understand things. And it's almost like his foreplay. That is what will make him feel wanted and desired. She goes, but what about me? I do all those things and I don't get anything in return? I said, that's the part where I wish I could talk to both of you together, but I'm not so sure that's going to happen at this point. She said, I can ask, but I've asked him before and he just won't do it. I said, that's all right, Mary. That's all right. So that's where the curiosity comes into play. You'll have to find things that make him curious so that you can get him to use his curiosity and his fact-finding and his research to figure things out and to figure out in order to figure out this situation. It's going to be a brain hack, but it's definitely possible. So here's how it works. Anytime you want to teach somebody something, you can always do so if two things are true. It's like a communicable disease. It's kind of weird to think about it this way, but if the person is vulnerable and if the person is exposed to the disease, they will get it. Both of those two things must be true, because if they're not vulnerable, but they are exposed, they might have the antidote. They're not vulnerable, so they won't get it, which is oftentimes why people say Christ could be around sinners but never commit sin, because he was not vulnerable or susceptible even though he was exposed to the sinners. On the flip side, if somebody is vulnerable but they're never exposed, well, they won't get the disease. Now, obviously Jason is hurting, so he is vulnerable. He is hurting, he is desperate. You said you hate to see him when you leave because he knows where you're going, so he's definitely vulnerable. And it's a cry for help. And he is exposed to you probably almost on a daily basis, right? She said, yeah, I'm there almost every day, almost, unless I'm with Jeremy. I said, so those two things being true, oh yeah, you can change things. She said, really? I said, yep. And just the fact that you're excited about it shows me that this is the direction you want to go, because Jeremy doesn't have kids and it wouldn't be as fulfilling to give them up. And if Jason could just have the passion, you would stay. Is that right? She said, yeah, but I don't know how to do it. But I am intrigued. I said, that is exactly what you and I are going to do. We will work with Jason even if he can't come to these sessions with you. Not a problem. And we're going to get this whole situation figured out. Now, it's going to take some work, and it won't happen quickly. It won't happen overnight. But you should see some progress in a few weeks, because your conation is called quick start. And you like to get things done, and sometimes there are mistakes, and you fix them later. And Jason, he likes to be methodical. He thinks things through. So there will be some things that you will have to pique his interest. He'll go research them. He'll go think on them. It will be slower than you want, but it will work, Mary. It will work. It'll kind of be a brain hack, a loophole in his brain to get him interested, to make the move, to be the initiator, to show more passion. She said, do you really think this will work? I said, oh yeah, I know it will. It'll just take some time. If this is something that's lost in your relationship and you're trying to figure out how to get your husband to make some changes, maybe it's not just for the sex, maybe it's not just for the passion, but you're trying to get your husband or your wife to make some changes and you feel like you're the only one making these changes, go ahead and click the link in the description. That'll take you to my website. You can download a small PDF and you can see exactly how to start seeing changes in your spouse. As for Mary, there were still some ups and downs. I'm not going to pretend like we solved it in one session, because we didn't. It did take some time. She did struggle letting Jeremy go as well, because the passion was readily available, but she did eventually go back to Jason. She did stay with Jason, and she did choose her more fulfilling life with the kids. And guess what? We got it. She even gets passionate sex sometimes too. So, thanks for listening, and more to come. If you subscribe, stay tuned. I'll share the next one. In the link, you'll see how you can help your spouse change if you feel like you're the only one changing, and you need to know how to get through to them so that both of you are making progress together. All right. Bye for now.